Good evening. I'm really pleased to be able to join the KMC seminar this evening and provide a little bit of context from Jersey's point of view in terms of where we are at this moment in time and how we will take forward the messages from this seminar in our work going forward as a result of the unprecedented times that we're in. So I am really pleased to join you. I'm so glad so many of you are able to join the seminars that we've held so far with the National Children's Bureau. It's amazing how committed and supportive you are in our early years community. So again, very many thanks from Jersey. I'm Nicola Mulliner. I'm Head of Early Years within the Children and Early Years team at the Education Department. I'm really pleased to be able to share just a few slides with you this morning, this evening, ahead of Jan's presentation. Next slide, thanks, Sarah. So just three things really to share with you this evening ahead of the main event. A little bit about what we know so far about the impact of this pandemic on children, young children in particular. What we know from the children of Jersey. We've had a survey done here in Jersey, so we have some sort of first-hand insights of what our children here are saying and feeling and thinking. And then really just from a department point of view and how we as an early years community are going to hopefully respond to this together in partnership. I think having those three messages ahead of what Jan's going to say will just help you to frame what we know about children, what we know about Jersey, and then what hopefully we're going to do together as a result of hearing those messages. Thanks, Sarah. So what do we know so far about the impact of COVID-19 on children? There continues to be studies being done, and we are able to pull on some information, particularly from Harvard University, the Centre for the Developing Child, that's provided us some first-hand information to date. But as we speak, as I said, there are other studies and research papers being pulled together, from a variety of sources to be able to give us an understanding about the impact. But we can obviously sort of from a common sense point of view and drawing on our own experiences know that children will have had different experiences. Many of you sitting here tonight might have your own children, and we can guarantee that those experiences have been different from their friends and from others. So we can't underestimate the differences that children have experienced. We know that they've likely to have experienced some form of loss. And loss in the sense of lost routines, that loss of structure, that common, that familiar has gone. Their friendships, their friendship groups, whilst we find ourselves sort of moving through the safe exit strategy for our island, that what's happened before has given us that real strangeness about where are our friends, what are they doing, that everyday practice that children have had whilst with you in your setting or in your provision has changed, has lost. So that real sense of loss is something that we need to be acutely aware of. Lost opportunities that your practice provides, whether that's enrichment through outdoor learning, whether it's the freedoms of outdoor play that gives them the ability to run, to imagine, to create, just having that feeling of lockdown and knowing that them and their families can't go out, are being told you have to stay in. For us, indeed, that's something that we've never experienced, certainly not in my lifetime. And hopefully, we won't again, because I think, our responses to being told you have to stay home has resulted in some very different experiences. And, no doubt you'll hear over the next weeks that, impact on services and the needs of children and families have risen in terms of well-being, mental health, feelings of sort of isolation. That demand and that need, I think, will be acutely aware of in the coming weeks. So it's having that at the forefront, that sense of loss. Um, a mixed feeling of emotions. And I'm sure when those children come through your doors, which they will again soon, they'll bring with them such a range of not necessarily just joy and happiness, which they will when they come to you, but they'll be anxious because things have changed. You may have changed. Hair's grown, their hair's grown, little differences that, this wasn't like this before. That sense of confusion as to why did all that happen? Why did we have to stay home? Why couldn't we just come to nursery, or why weren't we able to come to school? No doubt great anticipation of, what things will be like. Will I see my friend today? Will my key worker be there? Will my teachers be there? And, thinking about what that's going to look like going forward, because that could bring fear, that could bring a sense of, but things have changed, and I'm not in my happy place anymore. I don't feel confident anymore because I haven't spoken to these people for a while, and I haven't had that interaction that I crave. Young children crave that social. They're social beings. They want to be with each other, and so it is appreciating the feelings that they will have, and we'll be feeling exactly the same. How will they have changed? I'll go to the last point. Their interests, their characteristics, and their abilities, their capabilities may indeed have changed, and not always negatively. The impact of staying at home and being with those familiar adults, will have hopefully had a positive effect on those relationships. But again, children being at home, their interests, whether it's being able to sort of explore the garden, and learning at home if it's been through shared experiences like baking. I'm not sure if you've sort of noticed, but on the shelves, there's a void of flour, because I think people are getting back to basics and thinking, let's do some cooking and let's fill our time with those sorts of activities. So, it's us understanding what we know will have happened, but planning to be able to react to those appropriately. Next slide, thank you, Sarah. So what we know from Jersey, from the context of our island, our lovely island, and what the children are telling us. The Children's Commissioner and our department, the SIPES department there, jointly commissioned a survey, and appreciate that this is older children, but I think that their primary age and upwards, I think we really do need to be cognizant of the headlines that have come, because there were over 2,000 responses to this survey. And I think we just take a moment. I won't read through all of these, but please take a moment just to appreciate, over half the children, almost half, had those worries. Many miss their friends, as indeed I'm sure you are doing as well. You're missing your friends, your colleagues, those familiar adults that you that you need to have, to interact with, to socialize with, and to share ideas, experiences. We miss that interaction. We have to be aware that for some children, although the vast majority felt safe at home, for some the experience may not have been a positive one. Home life, their well-being may have suffered. So it's taken from this the information that we've got, that for some children this experience may not have been a positive one. You can see there that for some children, domestic violence, alcohol abuse in the home, overcrowded housing, these are very real experiences that children are living with and living through. So it's us having that awareness that for some children, that sadness, that not feeling safe, that desire, to have that normality again, it is something that once our settings and schools are able to reopen, you'll be providing that familiar, that comfort blanket, that safety, and having that contact once again with those children that really do need that support from your practice and your provision. Interestingly, younger children were more likely to express sadness about going back to school. that will be an interesting one for you to explore when your young children come back to you, and see, is it sadness because they're not going to be with mum, with dad, with their adult carers at home? Is it because they were going to miss being at home again? So it's really interesting to sort of find out just how children are feeling, and I think this just gives us a really nice picture of children's voice. It's something that's going to help us to shape our services going forward. And I do know that the Best Start Partnership that support and work in partnership for children and families under 5 specifically are going to look into a survey so we can really capture the first-hand experiences of new mums, babies born during the pandemic, experiences of children under 5. Really important that we're able to have that information firsthand, because things will be different. And as an education department, certainly we will have to think about what our services should look like going forward, because for me the important thing is to be able to respond appropriately to what we're hearing, to what we're seeing, and to what we're feeling. So for me, the work of the Best Start Partnership will be absolutely crucial in providing that under 5's perspective to complement the survey that you've seen in front of you. Next slide, thank you. So a little bit about how we are responding. We've had to dig deep and think hard, because this is unprecedented, and within a short space of time we've had to react to a very difficult situation. And it's testament to how as a community we can pull together and react in such a positive way. It's great to be able to say that childminders, nannies and early years settings can reopen from the 8th of June. There's specific guidance on the safe exit from the lockdown, the restrictions that were imposed, and that's a real good news story, that sense of returning is imminent and really positive for the children in our island. Bubbles of children then can interact and play naturally. The guidance absolutely acknowledges that for young children to be able to play instinctively, naturally and responsively in line with their development. This is how children learn, this is how they want to be. And so the notion of bubbles, restricting those numbers within the bubbles to be able to contain the potential spread of any virus, and then obviously follow that up with the contact tracing if necessary, is the measure that is for me the best one to be able to allow children to play and interact with no social distancing. But the bubble guidance is the safety measure that we've gone with to allow more children to return to our settings. In practical terms, virtual contact, a little bit like this, has taken off, and there has been a lot of online engagement that many of you have had with children and families, whether you work in a setting or a school, or whether you offer a different type of service. It has been virtual, it has been on the doorstep, it hasn't been face to face that we're used to, and that's been very different for us to come to terms with. And certainly a steep learning curve for some of us with technology. We've had to learn and embrace just what technology can do for us. And my goodness, I think it really has allowed us to maintain that certain level of contact, which has been absolutely vital. We know that induction and home liaison will be absolutely essential. I put home liaison, home visits, interaction with home, with parents maybe visiting. It's really important that can continue in whatever form we're allowed to make that happen, or to allow that to happen. It will absolutely be vital, because there'll be a lot of worried parents out there that haven't had the same experience. They won't have had that level of contact. They won't have that assurance that the familiar setting that they want for their child, it is all too unfamiliar at the moment. It might not be clear where where you enter, which door you use, or where the toilets are, or where the children hang their coats. So little things like that, just being aware that induction and home liaison will be absolutely vital to maintain in whatever way we can that induction and transition process for children, either starting nursery or starting reception. Just mentioned transition, and it will look and feel different, but the aims are absolutely the same. The essence of transition and having those conversations that allow people to transfer information that children can contribute to, what's going to be right for them. It's that three-way process. So although it might not be happening as we are used to here, again, hold true what the principles and aims of effective transition are. And I know that Julie McAllister, our early years advisor, has shared a new updated transition booklet with settings and schools, particularly around transition to support that process. Little bit of practical information in terms of data and what's required this year. So there won't be any submission against the early learning goals at the end of reception required. Obviously, ongoing conversations, if and when children return, are really valuable for you to gain an understanding of where those children are, the skills and competencies they have, particularly around the characteristics of effective learning, are going to be really important to share with Year 1 colleagues as children move into that new phase. Having that appropriate provision, that appropriate practice is going to be absolutely crucial for those children to be able to feel confident that they have, and you feel confident that they've met those early learning goals, that those particular prime areas those skills are embedded to be able to build on that next phase of learning. And then preparing for September, really important to think about what would my learning environment, what should it look like? What will the curriculum look and feel like? And what do we plan for? And we can only know that by reacting and responding appropriately to when the children come in. We need to take that time to appreciate where their interests lie, what their learning needs are, and instinctively as professionals, you'll know what to do in terms of doing the right thing. Thanks, Sarah. Next slide. So in practice, what do we really want to see? We want to have, and we hold dear those realistic expectations that should and must focus on well-being, that building and cementing relationships again. And it might be that period of readjustment or almost recovery, to how things were, but being aware that children are moving on really soon. And the summer holidays will happen, and then September will be upon us. So it's having those realistic expectations that really do have children's well-being and involvement at the heart of any planning. Looking through the eyes of a child in terms of how well they feel in their skin, how involved they are in their play, I think is insightful to know then how best to, as I said, plan your learning environment or build on those planning experiences that are going to support children to move on and progress. I've said the word professionally appropriate, I think, a couple of times, and we expect you to do what feels professionally appropriate. These children and these families, and you will be doing the right thing. And I think it's important for you to know, if you're making certain judgment calls, that you'll have our support to do that. We at the bottom there, are going to support you to achieve this through our own expectations and the key messages that we share, outwardly as to what are the right things to be doing for children. And in terms of how we communicate and how you communicate out, within the school community and more widely, with settings, with our childminders, with our health visitor colleagues and our speech and language colleagues, having that holistic communication between those agencies that work together to support early years children, I think is absolutely crucial. Autumn visits, moderation won't look the same. It will feel very different. But what we do want to sort of have that conversation around is the Leuven scales, the characteristics of effective learning and those competencies within the prime areas. That's going to be a real focus to ensure that your energies are focused on doing the right things that I think and I believe will pay off in the long run in terms of children being well adjusted, readjusted, retransitioning. We use all these terms, but it will help to build that picture of where that child's at, recognizing, as we've said earlier, where they've been, but then thinking where next. So I think that that time for rebuilding is now. We've been through tough times. We've been through unprecedented times in terms of trying to make sense of what's happening. But I think even now, and even more so, we need to sort of be thinking about that working together. We're good at doing it in early years, we really are. And for me, I'm really proud to be part of an early years community, because we talk, we share, we look holistically. And I think having seminars like this just gives us that moment to reflect on what is right and how we can get the strength from networking together. So I think, Sarah, if we move on to the next slide, it is my last one. I just want to say thank you. Hope I haven't rambled on too much. I know the main event is what you're here for, which is Jan de Biel, but I hope the warm-up act hasn't been too disappointing. I hope it's given you a little flavour of, what Jersey's all about, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. So many thanks.